Hello, everybody. My name is Gavin Simon, and I am joined today by David Rocha. David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Gavin. It's a pleasure to be here. Certainly pleasure to be part of this wonderful ARC advisory group. Lots of interesting things already been shared so far.
Yeah, David participated yesterday in our sustainability workshop. Really happy to have you there. We obviously really prized Wolters Kluwer's presence there. Obviously, what your company in regards to ESG and reporting and EHS is just perfectly niched into our workshop topic. And then tomorrow I get to speak with you during our session. And so really happy to have Wolters Kluwer here. And I feel like a lot of people are very familiar with Wolters Kluwer and the brand itself, but I think sometimes they get a little mixed up. And what do you guys do in terms of industrial operations and that level?
Yeah, sure. Happy to expand on that. So many people recognize Wolters Kluwer name. It's an organization that's been around for 189 years, originally based out of the Netherlands. It's now a fully global digital organization. So many people associate with Wolters Kluwer with the work that we do in health, in legal, regulatory, tax and accounting. But we also work a lot with enterprise, particularly in supporting them on their EHS, ESG, and operational reliability efforts. So in terms of what we do here, so I'm part of a business unit called Enablon. Enablon, in terms of ARC customers, they might know us for a few different things. So we have 5 key areas which we support, which is environment and ESG, health and safety, process safety management, and then control of work. And that includes things like permit to work system, energy isolation, shift handover and shift management, that kind of thing. So that's typically how we get involved with ARC work.
Of course. So what do you think the key challenges and opportunities facing energy and the chemical business when looking at operations and workplace safety?
I think the challenge and opportunities are both pretty much the same, which is change. There's the pace of change in which the world is going through at the moment, which organizations are subject to, has been unlike anything we've ever seen before. So organizations are seeing change externally. So in terms of what their competitors are doing, in terms of the geopolitical space, in terms of what's happening in the environment and risks that are affecting them. But, crucially with technology and we're also seeing a change in terms of the workforce and how people are expecting to work today. That's changing over before. That obviously creates very significant challenges to companies. But what I find is companies that we're working with that are leaning into those challenges are creating opportunities and competitive advantages. So that's something that we're actively working with them. And I would say that's probably the biggest challenge here.
Do you maybe want to drive down into ESG and like kind of the ESG regulations? Like yesterday, I was speaking about the EU CSRD and also the California regulation. And I definitely made notice that, yes, it's an additional responsibility, but what do you think those opportunities look like in terms of this regulatory space?
Yeah, I mean, look, if I could predict what's going to happen in the regulatory space, I think I probably wouldn't have to work anymore. But who knows what's going to come? We see a huge amount of change in that space already, right? So we've seen, as difficult political entities come into force, they have different opinions, and things can change very rapidly at a global scale. So we see what's happening now in North America, obviously, but also in the EU with the revision of some of the regulations already in place with the omnibus that's currently underway. What I tend to find is, many organizations that we deal with have already been doing a lot of the things that are being encoded in some of the regulations as voluntary best practices anyway. They do it because they see an opportunity to drive more operational resiliency to identify performance issues and to gain efficiency, but also from a stakeholder management. So some of the key companies that we work with use sustainability, as part of their brand identity and their value add to the consumers that they serve. So ESG's the discourse around that is being very much driven by the regulatory course. I've been around a long time. And I remember when some of these changes were happening long before any of these things were being encoded into regulations. And I think the same thing will continue to happen, regardless of what happens in regulations.
Well, on the topic of change and being able to predict the future, I don't think anybody could have predicted how fast and how quickly AI has swept
Yeah,
this industry and many other industries. And obviously, there's no question in how, if AI will impact industries or our industry. And obviously, it's when and where. And so I guess I want to ask you, what are the challenges and opportunities you see in the application of AI in industrial operations? And specifically, maybe if you can speak about workplace safety as well.
sure. Yeah, it's really interesting. One of the speakers said this morning, people no longer have a choice to opt out of AI. It wasn't that long ago when we were talking about some of the AI and use cases when people were debating whether we should or shouldn't. That conversation has clearly moved on in a very short amount of time. So that's kind of another example of how just rapid change. There are huge opportunities for AI in terms of adding operational efficiency, in terms of, so I tend to see this in three key phases. So let me structure it that way. In terms of gathering data and making processes that are currently very manual and laborious, AI can significantly speed those up, but both in terms of gathering data, in terms of reviewing that data for completeness and accuracy, and identifying anomalies. The other thing that you can do is it can actually augment users in their processes. So it can speed up by bringing users to attention things that are outliers and helping them review those. And then the last thing that AI will help do is actually we are, it's kind of incredible to see where population is these days in terms of the wealth of information that we've all got access to at our fingertips anywhere we are at any point. So actually making sense of all this data and summarizing information, helping interrogate this data is another area that we do. So to kind of bring how that is applied to workplace safety, one of the things that we see in workplace safety is, people really need to remain in control. So we don't see AI, at least not today, replacing users. What we do see AI is providing helpful recommendations or insights that the user might not have known. So if I'm about to go and do an activity and I'm going to go and do something where, perhaps something that I haven't done before, or I've done it 10 times before, it doesn't really matter. AI can take data in terms of what's happened there and say, well, by the way, did you know that such and such, when they did this task, these were the risks and hazards they encountered. These were some of the lessons from incidents related to this. And that's an example of how AI can augment the user in making their workplace safer.
Amazing. I'm really excited to touch on this topic because in the supply chain space and also the sustainability space, obviously we've been seeing that collaboration is key to many business operations and governance. How does Wolters Kluwer support and enable transparency and visibility within that?
Yeah, so I think this is the key purpose. So that's, at least for me, why I joined the OIC advisory group and this industry leadership forum, is to drive that collaboration. Part of the change that we're seeing is how interconnected and interwoven supply chains are, and the need for much more transparency, and with that requires collaboration. So when we need organizations to be speaking things in the same terms, comparing apples with apples. So there's a real need for data and standards to be defined, and then for the technology to support those processes. And it's really in that later process that we tend to focus. So a lot of our customers use our platforms and our systems in order to drive collaboration and break down silos. So one of the things that we see, and again, this is one of the key success factors we see for some of the leading organizations, is they enable collaboration across different functions and different functional silos much more effectively. They also break down collaboration between operational sites and enterprise level, and across the supply chain, as I mentioned. So if you can do this effectively, you end up speaking about things in the same terms. So communication's enhanced, And you also drive a huge amount of efficiency because you're not having to go and do things for one purpose. You're able to collect some data and then slice and dice and make it visible and usable by a lot of different functions. So that tends to be the main area in which we're focused on, helping our customers collaborate.
Yeah, I mean, I think through all of the regulations I've reviewed in the past year, it comes down to a major responsibilities of companies to communicate with one another and basically communicate some crucial information in terms of reporting, in terms of supply chain, different types of information. So really awesome stuff that you guys are doing here at Wolters Kluwer. I want to say thank you so much for joining me today, and I appreciate your attendance at the ARC Forum, and I look forward to our session tomorrow.
Great. Thank you, Gaven.
Thank you. I've been speaking with David Rocha from Wolters Kluwer. We really appreciate it.